Part 11. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 101. With such a high amount of radiation, it's no wonder that even Minerva, the barbarian Nephilim, seems to be cursed with weakness whenever he gets close to it. Even Launeokeo, who had no physical body and was even immune to magic, almost disappeared when the monster was irradiated by it. This amount of radiation is not only excessive, but the entire Tyrannosaurus rex is like a nuclear reactor. The amount of radiation is even higher than that of an ordinary reactor. Huh? Etc. Seemingly. Now something makes sense. Gangluj also lamented that the guy was so big and so mobile, and he didn't know what kind of power it used. Looking back now, what other motivation can be used? Nuclear power. A nuclear-powered Tyrannosaurus, isn't this the setting of Godzilla? But the nuclear-powered Tyrannosaurus rex is mechanical, so isn't it, Mechagodzilla? Tisk tisk. Is this something new created by Shimei, or is it still the legacy left by the lost? Well, whether it's the former or the latter, these lost ones are really capable of causing trouble. As expected, he was running wildly on the road to death. Ruger shook his head helplessly and continued to process the information. The weak aura ability of the mechanical Tyrannosaurus is nuclear radiation, which suddenly provides a reasonable explanation for many previous things. Now that Luger has judged that the energy of the Tyrannosaurus mechanical comes from nuclear reactions, and coupled with such strong radiation, he can only suspect that the reactor in the opponent's body is mostly military grade. Civilian nuclear power plants also use reactors based on nuclear fission, but as they develop from generation to generation, they pursue ultimate safety and secondary economic benefits. Therefore, the more technologically advanced civilian reactors are, the lower the concentration of nuclear fuel they use. This kind of reactor, even if the nuclear combustion burns for a certain period of time and the content of unusable waste-type radioactive elements is too high, it will be difficult to achieve the radioactivity of the current Mechatyrannosaurus. In Ruger's opinion, the reactor in this guy's body is probably a military-grade reactor similar to the one on a nuclear submarine that uses enriched uranium as fuel and can be used for 50 or 70 years. But this guy's reactor is obviously not from a submarine. Whether it is a civilian power generation or military power reactor, it is still a boiler in essence. The large amount of energy released by the nuclear reaction is used to boil water, and the steam drives the impeller to rotate and generate power. Although this process is cumbersome and has low energy utilization, it is also the safest and controllable method. These are not important. What is important is that this method requires water, and a lot of water. So most nuclear power plants are built on the coast. Therefore, most military nuclear power is installed on submarines, and only a small part is used on aircraft carriers, and the latter is large in size and deep in water. But as for the Mechatyrannosaurus, let alone its size, which is slightly larger than the excavated Tyrannosaurus rex fossil, it can't hold the reactor at all. What about the water? Where is the needed water? So, could it be a controllable nuclear fusion reactor in the world of the lost? That thing is probably small and doesn't use much water. But Ruger doesn't think so, because fusion reactors don't have such high levels of radiation. Based on everyone's previous experience, Luger was able to confirm that the nuclear radiation emitted by this Mechatyrannosaurus was the closest to nuclear waste. It is the most complex and deadly nuclear radiation, including alpha rays, beta rays, gamma rays, and even X-rays. Alpha rays are high-speed particle beams composed of helium nuclei, and beta rays are high-speed particle beams composed of electrons. Both types of rays have strong penetrating power but also decay quickly. Gamma rays are high-energy electromagnetic waves with extremely short wavelength and extremely high frequency. It has the strongest penetrating power and the slowest decay. After being emitted by a radiation source, alpha-beta rays will attenuate and disappear at a very short distance, but gamma rays can travel very far. This corresponds to the fact that the farther away everyone is from the Mecha-Tyrannosaurus, the less vulnerable they are to the debilitating curse, but when they get closer, they can become instantly powerless. The attenuation of gamma rays is positively related to the density of matter during propagation. The greater the density of matter, the stronger it is absorbed, which manifests as a stronger attenuation. Therefore, although Luodu saved the trouble and did not install nuclear, biological, and chemical 3 defense devices on the small tank, he relied on the steel armor plate to attenuate it to a strength that he could feel. However, steel can only attenuate gamma rays more, rather than completely preventing them. So even though it was attenuated, Luodu couldn't feel anything was wrong. But when he took out a Geiger counter and measured it, he found that the ionizing radiation in the car was still extremely high. To sum up, let alone the issue of counterattack, Ruger's top priority is to improve everyone's nuclear protection capabilities. The reason why the female warrior Minerva previously regarded high-intensity nuclear radiation as a halo of weakness or even an aura of aging was not only similar in effect, but also related to the fact that she would regain health after drinking a bottle of life potion. But in fact, it was the life potion that repaired the organs and cells in her body that had been damaged by nuclear radiation. But once her life potion is exhausted and Luodu's treatment needles are not replenished in time, it is likely that the damage will become permanent and irreparable. The external manifestation is that the aura of weakness and aging she suffered has become permanent. By then, even if she doesn't die this time, it is unlikely that she will survive for long in a world where the living environment is extremely harsh and surrounded by countless enemies and wolves. Nuclear protective clothing, used by the 3 defense forces, should be enough. And currently we only have to consider nuclear, chemical, and biological contamination can be put aside first. Such a set of protective equipment would not be too expensive. Ruger bought one for 5 points. However, he hadn't put it on yet. He just put the Geiger counter into the protective suit to test it for a while, and he couldn't help but look bitter again. This protective suit cannot be said to be useless, but the effect is far less than Ruger thought. It's just that the measurement value that always went off the charts before has fallen into the measurable range for the first time. 850 millisieverts per hour. This is the dose after wearing the nuclear protective suit. And this is in a car far away. Wearing this protective suit to get in close contact with the metal Tyrannosaurus, you will still get hurt and die. This won't work. Ruger shook his head helplessly. Just as he was about to continue, he found that the voice of the female warrior had become smaller again. He hurriedly looked back at the battlefield and found that the female warrior was now in the same state as before on the ground. Being chased and beaten by the enemy. Completely suppressed. The reason why she was able to hold on until now was because she also found that the metal Tyrannosaurus seemed to be easily blinded by the dust, so she had been creating haze. Well, seeing this scene, Luodu's counterattack plan finally had at least one trick to use. Thinking of this, Luodu simply sent Minerva a more convenient smoke-making prop, a smoke bomb for the tank. However, after sending it over, he found that the previous problem was still not solved. Minerva didn't know how to use this thing. Fortunately, he also had another way. Soon, he exchanged a set of 4-shot smoke bomb launchers, pressed them on the small tank, and threw them towards the battle. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 102. Puff, 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 4 smoke bombs exploded in the air like they were launched by a grenade launcher, pouring down billowing smoke, instantly dyeing the place black. Seeing that the place was completely blocked by smoke, Ruger hurriedly called Minerva back and took the opportunity to teach her how to use single-shot ammunition without a launcher. However, when he saw Minerva's miserable appearance at close range, he realized how badly the female warrior had been beaten before. The steel external armor that was at least 12 millimeters thick had been beaten to pieces. The big pit in the chest armor seemed to be able to be used as a frying pan after being removed. The intersection of her armor hit by bullets was even worse, with pieces of blood stains that had already dyed the backing dark red. Ruger took a quick look and found that there were still many bullets in the flesh, clamped by her strong muscles, and did not hit the internal organs. And because of the powerful effect of the life potion, the scars on that part were solid, and Ruger could not easily remove them. Don't worry about it. Seeing that Ruger seemed to want to dig out the warhead for her immediately, Minerva waved her hand. There's plenty of time to do this kind of thing after we win. But what's the point if we lose now? You'd better hurry up and think about how to deal with that big guy. I really can't do anything with it. Ruger not only has a way, but also more than one. It's just that the one that doesn't take time is too expensive, and the one that doesn't take money is too time-consuming. Ruger is still struggling about which way to go. But just as he was about to force a choice here, the Tyrannosaurus in the smoke over there actually spoke again. You, or indeed the remnant of a sinner. You are still using this evil weapon, you really deserve to die. Hearing it roaring there, the female warrior couldn't help but frown and asked, "What is it saying?" The guy still used the local language of the Lost World, one of the most troublesome representatives of the Germanic language family. Fortunately, Ruger has long passed the stage of feeling sorry for 5 language pack points and has mastered this language. But he could understand what the other party was saying, but Minerva couldn't. It said that all lost ones were sinners, and that I was a remnant of the lost ones, and that I deserved to die for still using lost one weapons. What? The female warrior was very surprised to hear that. Isn't it also using lost one weapons? Why doesn't it just die? Hey, did you find out? Ruger casually fired a bunch of smoke bombs again to prevent the other party from suddenly attacking, but threw out a portable loudspeaker and shouted at the guy. Hey, big guy, aren't you also using sinner weapons? Why are you saying that about me? Bang bang bang. A string of ammunition flew out of the smoke and directly blew the loudspeaker to pieces. In order to eliminate you sinner remnants, I had no choice, and God will forgive me. Seeing that it spoke so high-soundingly, but the gun was fired so impolitely, the female warrior was also stunned. On the other hand, Luger casually threw out another loudspeaker, this time even further, as if he had known it would happen, and pulled the female warrior to hide further away. After that, he shouted through the loudspeaker, "I see you are still having fun playing with these weapons. How is it, did you think you killed me just now and felt very comfortable?" Bang bang bang, another series of cannon shots answered him. However, he soon took out a new loudspeaker and shouted, "Damn, a sinner is a sinner, still as despicable, shameless, cunning, and insidious as before." Luger rolled his eyes and thought to himself, are all villains in the world so hypocritical? Wow, it sneak attacks just to fulfill God's will and will be forgiven by God. Others predicted its sneak attack, which is despicable and shameless, and is evidence of their crimes as sinners. This is too familiar. What is it saying? The female warrior asked curiously again. But this time, Ruger didn't answer her, but asked her to take a bunch of smoke bombs and loudspeakers and run in another direction. He scattered the loudspeakers on the ground while running. He really didn't want to translate those nonsense, fearing that the female warrior would speak her mind. No, she would be quick to speak, and would immediately raise her knife to kill her as soon as she heard it. Ruger continued to release smoke bombs, and soon covered the entire space. He didn't drive the small tank, but directly recovered it into the space, while using the loudspeaker with wireless receiving function to talk back to the guy, while making an upgraded version of protective clothing for himself. There are also various equipment for counterattack. Hey, everyone, you are so hypocritical, does your God know? You are allowed to sneak attack, but I am not allowed to guard against your sneak attack. Is your God mentally ill? Shut up, damn sinner, don't be disrespectful to God. Then, Let your God come out to fight me. Ruger hid in the logistics space, leaving only a signal transmitter outside to send signals to the loudspeaker, naturally fearless. You can ask him to send down divine thunder to strike me. Oh, your God, can't be the atomic God. Then you can ask him to nuclear me, come on. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it, the metal Tyrannosaurus over there was rampaging in the cave, shooting at the loudspeakers. However, the entire space was filled with smoke, and no matter where it went, it could not see the surroundings clearly. 3 cannons, 1 large and 2 small, kept firing, and although they also knocked down many loudspeakers, Ruger kept sending new ones to Minerva with the terminal block. Minerva hid from the Tyrannosaurus by the wall of the space, throwing out the trumpet and a few smoke bombs from time to time. The Tyrannosaurus vented his anger and found that it had little effect, so he was furious. Assholes, you sinners are the greatest evil in this world. God, may the prophet, Son of God, Savior, Noah, Messiah, give me strength to eradicate the remnants of sinners and purify our planet. What the hell? Son of God. Savior. Messiah. These guys actually borrowed from the monotheism of the Middle East? Sure enough, that thing is too easy to use. No wonder the double standards were so familiar before. Messiah, this word is similar to the name Joshua mentioned before, both of which were transliterated in translation, and the latter became more popular. Joshua was translated into the sound at the beginning of coconut, and Messiah corresponds to the word Christ, or ex-Christ. I often hear people shouting coconut cakes from there, which should be translated as Joshua Messiah. Well, not really. Joshua is a transliteration of ancient Greek, while Messiah is Hebrew. The reason why Messiah was changed to Kiju is mainly because it was changed to a sound close to Christo by ancient Greek. As for why the Chinese translation does not sound like this, it is because it was originally pronounced as Kilasiju in Cantonese, and then simplified. This word, literally translated as the anointed, really means the Savior. Anointing can be simply understood as a ritual of recognition of the head of the country or even the nation. Later, because the country was destroyed, people who wanted to restore the country gradually turned this noun, which should have been the head of the country, into the Savior. It is the Lord who saved them from the sea of suffering. Then because of the sect of the prophet Joshua, this religion was extended and extended, claiming to be the Savior who saved everyone. Now, hearing these words from the mouth, or perhaps the chest, of this metal Tyrannosaurus, Ruger was filled with emotion. However, he soon noticed the most important and core one in this string of entries. The name that replaced Joshua. Noah. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 103. Noah, the Savior. A messy biochemical mechanical beast. Claiming that humans are sinners and should be eliminated for the sake of the earth. These elements together are basically the settings of the old game Metal Gundam. Although Ruger only had a brief contact with the later generations, he had more or less heard of the original plot. It's just that because his memory was not deep, he never thought about it. Now think about it, isn't it this? In his computer that was inexplicably occupied by the system, there are actually emulators of various old consoles, including this game. So that's it, he couldn't help laughing after realizing it. Your prophet Messiah is called Noah, right? Where is it? Has it been launched into space? Noah is also a famous name in that monotheistic religion, and is considered the first generation of Savior. Legend has it that one day God was dissatisfied with the people on earth and wanted to destroy the world, but he thought Noah was a good person and could get along with him, so he secretly told him. God also told Noah that he would use a flood to wipe out those humans he disliked. Noah was worthy of being favored by God. He immediately built a boat and took his family, chickens, ducks, cattle, sheep, and so on. When others asked, he didn't say anything. He lived not far from the two rivers in the Mesopotamian river basin in later generations before they entered the Persian Gulf. Looking at the satellite map today, you can see that there is a desert there, with only a little green near the two rivers. However, a few thousand years is a drop in the ocean for the Earth, and the climate change is not big, so it was also a dry and rainy place at that time. He built a boat in a dry and rainy place and didn't explain it to others, so of course others mocked him as a madman. Even so, people still refused to explain. In the end, there was a flood, and his family survived, but everyone else died. It's hard to say whether others really deserved to die, but Noah's family really deserved to live. Later, some people always used the Old Testament to say that Adam and Eve were the ancestors of mankind, right? The monotheism itself is actually based on Noah as its ancestor. Because the real founder of monotheism is the 10th or 11th generation descendant of Noah, at least they claim to be so. In short, from then on, there was a special term in the world, Noah's Ark. Later, people often said that the difference between the Chinese and them was that when they encountered a flood, they loved to build ships and escape without caring about the lives of others, while the Chinese people controlled the floods in various ways, and man conquered nature. This is what Ruger meant by was he launched into space. It was a joke about whether Noah was also a spaceship or something like that. According to the setting of the original game, Noah, who led those strange things to slaughter humans, was a supercomputer dedicated to restoring the Earth's ecology. But Ruger always felt that the setting was a bit unreasonable. A supercomputer that does this kind of thing should be named after the goddess of the Earth, such as Gaia. Noah is more suitable for the main control AI of a spaceship escaping into space. So he said that. But he regretted it after saying it. It took him a long time to explain all these twists and turns. Who could understand what he said to a metal Tyrannosaurus? Unexpectedly, the Tyrannosaurus on the other side snorted and shouted, "The prophet Noah went to heaven to see more clearly and guide us to purify the earth. With his guidance, you will have nowhere to hide." Yeah, I guessed it right. It's really in the sky. Ruger muttered to himself, but retorted casually, "Haha, his guidance doesn't look good, am I still here? You keep saying he is a prophet, but he doesn't even know this. If you don't ask him, is he presbyopic?" "Shut up. Despicable sinner," the Tyrannosaurus shouted. "What do you know? This is God's test for me. 50 years ago, a meteorite fell from the sky, cutting off my connection with the prophet. I was once slack. But I never dared to forget my mission and kept accumulating strength. Sure enough, God and the prophet saw my efforts and sent angels to give me an oracle. Since then, I have never been lost again. I, E52695V418, swear to purify all the sinners I see." Well, this name doesn't sound like a biological name, but more like an electronic biological name like AI. Or, is it simply the serial number of some device? Hey, E or something, you keep saying sinners, what on earth did humans do to make you so angry? Ruger continued to talk nonsense to delay time. Haven't you done enough? This planet has been polluted by you. The environment has been destroyed, and countless species have disappeared because of you. Your sins are simply innumerable. Tisk tisk, I can't understand what you said, Ruger said sarcastically. You said countless species disappeared because of humans, right? But if there were no humans, would there be no species disappeared on this planet? What's more, many species have thrived because of humans. If you really want to calculate it carefully, maybe the number of species on the Earth is decreasing, but if you say the number of species, maybe it's not decreasing but increasing. Nonsense, Tyrannosaurus said angrily, no matter how you talk nonsense, you can't change the facts. And those species that help the evil and act as accomplices to the tiger, we will definitely clean them up. Wow, so which species should live and which species should die? It turns out that it is according to your will, Ruger sneered. As for destroying the environment, I want to ask you, for the prototype species of the body you are using now, do they live in the same environment as now? If all the species of their era were moved here, no, here 50 years ago, or if the species here 50 years ago were moved to that era, I am afraid that 80% of the species would not survive. Is the change of human beings to the environment as big as the difference between the environments of these two eras? You said that human beings destroyed the environment. Are they destroying the environment where dinosaurs lived, or the environment where humans live? Think about it carefully. You are exterminating humans in the name of the change of the environment that humans adapt to. In order to protect the environment that humans like most, they became extinct. Humans. What are you doing here? Shut up. The metal Tyrannosaurus over there obviously didn't think about what Ruger said, and roared angrily. You sinners are the best at talking nonsense. You are really sinful, and you deserve God's punishment. And we are the species chosen by God, the true sons of God, and the unique and worthy masters of this planet. Ruger couldn't help clapping his hands and laughing when he heard it. It's rare that you tell the truth. After all, aren't you still doing this for profit? You just want to grab the benefits from humans and use them for yourself, so you find a reason to exterminate humans. Look through your own database. Humans should not be too familiar with this method. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 104. Wow, you sinner, shut up. Ruger's words obviously deeply angered the Tyrannosaurus. The guy knew that he couldn't catch Brother Lu amid the heavy smoke screen, but he still fired at the surroundings. At first it was just the sound of artillery, but soon Ruger heard the crunching of earth and the sound of clods of earth breaking and falling. It made a big fuss, and Minerva, who was outside adding horns and smoke bombs, did not dare to get close easily and could only hide far away. As the smoke dissipated, the active part of the Tyrannosaurus Rex was revealed. That guy actually looked like an excavator, chewing on the wall with his big mouth. If the two of them were still doubtful about how this underground space came to be, now their doubts have completely dissipated. If you ask which excavator company is the best, Huaxia Donkey looks for blue. No. It's the charming cave looking for the Tyrannosaurus. Oh, it doesn't rhyme, looking for the Dragon King. This guy is still a construction machine emotionally. Although this metal Tyrannosaurus actually plays a cameo role as an excavator, its work is really unambiguous. Not to mention that when the shovel was shoveled down, a big hole was immediately chewed out of the wall inside the cave. Even the large speakers around it were mostly damaged by it. Even those that were not broken were smashed in by clods of earth falling from the sky, and could no longer make a sound. Not long after this, more than half of the loudspeakers in the cave were missing. The female warrior had already stood on the opposite side and fired smoke bombs in the direction of the Tyrannosaurus. But the Tyrannosaurus over there seemed to understand, and it used the female warrior's previous tactic of walking around the wall, operating right next to the edge of the cave, and it didn't matter if it couldn't be seen. After half of the edge of the cave was cleared, the Tyrannosaurus Rex directly rubbed against the side wall to clean up the other side. Construction cannot be destroyed as quickly as construction. The latter was obviously unable to keep up with the former. In the end, Tyrannosaurus had forced Brother Lu to dare not use the loudspeaker to make any sound. What should I do? If this continues, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on, Minerva said hurriedly when she saw that the situation was not going well. What's going on with Tia? Have you found Sarah? And her pet, can you come and help? Lugger, who was still working overtime in the logistics space, continued to fiddle with the CNC lathe while shaking his head. There's no news from her side yet. Lao Naokeo went back to replenish his energy a long time ago and hasn't come back yet. As he spoke, he also looked at the indicator lights of another set of communicators. That was a set of communicators he specially left for Lao Nao Noisy. He was afraid that Lao Nao Noa would not be able to find him in the space when he came back, so he threw the condom outside in advance for Lao Nao Noa to possess him. That set of equipment was thrown on the edge of the battlefield. As long as Ruger didn't deliberately lead the Tyrannosaurus there, that set of equipment was most likely safe. What should we do? Are your things ready? Minerva asked again. Soon. In fact, the preparations Ruger has completed so far are less than 1/3 of his plan. But he didn't dare to say this to the female warrior for fear of discouraging her. We can only send her a batch of supplies to keep her going. However, the metal Tyrannosaurus had already cleared away most of the speakers with a flurry of punches, and by the way, the density of the smoke screen at the edge of the cave dropped sharply. Although Minerva tried her best to find a way to supplement, she was soon cornered by the metal Tyrannosaurus. Damn it! Hey, I really can't hold on any longer, the female warrior shouted hurriedly. No matter how strong you are. Before Lugger could finish his words, the female warrior's radio was destroyed again by the sharply increased radiation dose caused by the metal Tyrannosaurus being too close. Ionizing radiation can even burn human tissue, so it is naturally more effective against fragile electronic circuits. However, even if she didn't hear all of Lugger's words, the female warrior understood that it didn't matter whether she heard all of what he said or not. Still insisting? If you can persist, why are you urging me? The female warrior cursed, then stuffed the terminal block back into the package and grabbed another long-handled sword in her hand. Damn it, I will fight with you. He shouted this, but this time Minerva did not jump up and continue to attack the guy's big mouth. She just rushed forward with all her strength, heading straight for the two big tracked chariot chassis feet under the Tyrannosaurus Rex's legs. When Shadow Link's Lao Noisy went to scout the metal Tyrannosaurus before, he didn't bring back much useful information, but he at least described the general structure of the tracked chassis. Even though that thing was not only sturdy in structure but also thick in armor, it was already the easiest place to attack that Minerva knew. It was just that she rushed over and hit a crawler chassis with a cross slash, when the thing suddenly accelerated and hit her. At the same time, the armor piece that had been firmly fastened to the outside of the chassis suddenly popped up. Instantly, they turned into serrated scales that stood upright on the outer armor, and were driven by the huge kinetic energy to poke into the front armor of the female warrior. Even though Minerva's armor had been replaced by a new one by Lugger, it was still penetrated by those sharp and strong armor scales under this sudden attack. Soon, blood was flowing out along the edge of Minerva's penetrated armor. Although the metal Tyrannosaurus's sudden hedgehog attack did not kick the female warrior away, it instead skewered her on his hedgehog boots like mutton skewers. The metal Tyrannosaurus didn't seem to expect that his sudden acceleration was so effective. When it reacted and turned the two 37mm rapid-fire cannons on its front paws to aim at it and prepared to hit it, it saw the female warrior grinning strangely at it. The zombie driver who saw the scene through the observation equipment actually placed on the chest and abdomen of the Tyrannosaurus could even see the blood bruises flowing out of the female warrior's teeth. Not good. After seeing the expression of the female warrior, the zombie driver immediately realized that something was wrong and hurriedly manipulated his two front paws to aim over there. However, it was too late. The next moment, the female warrior threw two brown rectangular bricks into the track along the gaps exposed by the erected blade-like armor plates. Save your mother! Boom boom! With two explosions, the metal Tyrannosaurus's tracked big feet, which were protected by thick armor, were immediately blown into pieces by 2 kilograms of RDX. No, it was fragments and parts flying everywhere, and the engine oil was all gray. No matter how strong the tank is, it is difficult for the track itself to survive under 2 kilograms of explosives. As a considerable part of the metal structure was injured by the shock wave, Even if it was not damaged immediately, it was soon crushed and disintegrated by the huge weight of the metal Tyrannosaurus. In the end, this thing quickly lost its balance like a giant with a foot pierced by an arrow, and stumbled to the ground. The shock wave of 2 kilograms of explosives can at least blow up the sturdy chassis of the tracked vehicle, but what if it hits the female warrior? Although she tried her best to throw the 2 bricks of explosives far away, how far can they be farther than the length of the tracked vehicle itself? The only thing to be thankful for is that the female warrior who chose to use this self-mutilation method to lure the Tyrannosaurus to reveal its flaws based on the structural diagram left by Lao Guozhou was the one who made the plan. This means that she is fully prepared for the current situation. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Ai-Chi. Chapter 105. The explosive equivalent of 2 kilograms of RDX is equivalent to 3 kilograms of TNT. Google search reading. The energy released by the explosion of 1 kilogram of TNT is 4,200 kilojoules. In terms of pure energy calculation, it can move a 100 kilogram object 2 kilometers. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward arrow. Of course, the energy released when the bomb explodes will not be completely converted into shock waves. The shock wave energy acting on the female soldier, if simplified, is approximately the area of the female soldier facing the shock wave, divided by the area of the sphere with the radius from the explosion point to the female soldier, multiplied by the total energy of the shock wave. This calculation does not take into account the loss caused by obstacles during the transmission of the shock wave. But even so, the impact on the female soldier is probably between 1,000th and a few hundredths of the total energy. That is, the energy that allows a 100 kilogram object to move 2 meters. Simply put, the female soldier will still be blown away by the shock wave. However, in the previous situation, being blown away was not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, while she threw the 2 bombs, she had already struggled to pull her body out of the Tyrannosaurus Rex's armored blade. While pulling out, she also used the healing potion given by Lugger to replenish her lost vitality. When the shock wave came, it just helped her to completely shake herself out of the armored blade. However, with her weight, she actually only flew 2 or 3 meters away. Run! She almost staggered and fell to the ground, and then she heard Lugger's roar in the smoke 100 meters away. The radio was disconnected just now. Although she restrained herself from panicking, she was somewhat unsure in her heart. Now hearing Lugger's shout, she finally calmed down, stepped a few steps, finally controlled her body, and ran away. Lugger put down the bomb detonator casually, and put both hands on the equipment in front of him to fiddle with it. After finding that the radio was interrupted again and the female warrior did not take the new radio in the terminal block, he immediately returned to the cave from the logistics space. Otherwise, how could the female warrior who did not know the truth shouting "Save your mother" really detonate the bomb? Although he did not know what means the female warrior would use to deal with the metal Tyrannosaurus, as the real buyer of the bomb, he calculated the difference between the bombs used by the female warrior and the bombs she got. After all, both times needed to pass through his hands. He knew that the female warrior still had 2 bombs in her hand that were not used. So he had to give up continuing to improve the plan and hurried back to the cave. Just like that, he came out with 1/3 of the plan he had prepared, and heard the female warrior shouting a spell. He had to cooperate. So there was the current scene. But blowing up 1 foot of the metal Tyrannosaurus could not really make it completely lose its mobility. Indeed, according to human understanding of Tyrannosaurus, these giant creatures with short forelimbs and well-developed hind limbs would not be easy to get up once they fell. Then the metal Tyrannosaurus, which theoretically refers to the physiological structure of the Tyrannosaurus family, should also have similar shortcomings. However, the metal Tyrannosaurus, after all, is not a flesh and blood body, and its reaction is much faster. Just as the female warrior who was blown away by the shockwave finally grasped her balance with Ruger's encouragement and was about to continue running out, The tail of the metal Tyrannosaurus over there had swept over. "Be careful!" The echo of the previous run had not disappeared in the cave, and Ruger shouted again. Fortunately, although the female warrior over there did not see the situation behind her, she still subconsciously used jump and jumped directly to the side. But her speed was fast enough, and the Tyrannosaurus over there was faster. The metal tail that swept like a giant hammer directly changed from sweeping to swinging, and whipped into the air like a whip. Snap! After a thunderous sonic boom with the sound of metal colliding, the female warrior was accelerated again, falling to the side like a kite with a broken line, and it was obvious that she was exhaling more and taking in less. Ruger saw it with his eyes and was anxious in his heart, but he could not run over to check. Because the metal Tyrannosaurus used the inertia of the tail to swing, the whole dragon body spun like a gyroscope and stood up again. Although one leg was lame, after the engine of its other tracked leg stopped, it still maintained its balance on both sides and stood steadily. At the same time, the two rapid-fire guns in his hands and the 88 gun on the tail were aimed at Ruger. There is only one chance, Ruger thought to himself, and his hands hurriedly adjusted the equipment in front of him. To be precise, it was the elevation and direction machine on the gun in front of him. Just as the Tyrannosaurus fired two 37mm shells and was about to send the short 88mm gun's grenade over, Ruger slammed the electric launch button of the gun remote control. Boom! A tungsten alloy core subcaliber armor-piercing shell made by him was fired from the muzzle of the 75mm caliber Pak-42/L70 anti-tank gun. There was no time left, and he couldn't get a rifled cannon to fire a suitable fin-stabilized armor-piercing projectile, so he had to settle for the next best thing and use a discarding sabot armor-piercing projectile. The outer side of this type of ammunition is also wrapped in a soft shell. After being fired out of the muzzle, the extremely low-quality shell quickly falls off due to the combined effects of air resistance. The subcaliber armor-piercing core inside, with most of the kinetic energy given by the artillery, continues to fly towards the target. The most powerful gun in Ruger's hands is the Pak-42/L70 anti-tank gun. This is a cannon with rifling in the barrel. Under the action of rifling, the bullet fired will spin at a very high speed in exchange for stability in flight, thereby improving accuracy. But it is precisely because the bullet will spin that it is impossible to use the tail-stabilized bullet used by smoothbore guns. Forcible use will seriously weaken the kinetic energy of the bullet. Fortunately, subcaliber armor-piercing bullets are a major stage in the development of armor-piercing bullets. It is the intermediate state of the front-end solid armor-piercing bullet and the rear-end stabilized discarding sabot bullet. Although the original subcaliber armor-piercing bullet was not the discarding sabot type he used, it was not difficult for Ruger, who fully mastered this technical line, to improve it to that level. This subcaliber discarding sabot armor-piercing bullet threw away the shell as soon as it left the muzzle, leaving only the hard tungsten alloy core rushing towards the metal Tyrannosaurus at a speed of 1,000+ meters per second. Boom! When the short 88mm cannon just fired the grenade, the tungsten alloy core had already rubbed the Tyrannosaurus's tail and pierced its heart. Swoosh! A dragon-like metal vibration sounded, even drowning out the explosion of the grenade. Looking at the metal Tyrannosaurus again, there was a hole in its lower abdomen. However, there was no oil leakage after the metal machinery was punched with the hole, or sparks emitted when the circuit was destroyed. On the contrary, a green viscous liquid with a strange fluorescent light slowly flowed out there. That feeling was like blood. On the other side, the Pak-42/L70 anti-tank gun was directly hit by the 88mm grenade, and it was deformed at this time. In the smoke, it can even be seen that the gun body has been deflected at an angle of at least 30 degrees. This gun was scrapped just after firing the first shell. The gun is like this. What about the person who fired it? Hey, Lugger, how are you? The female warrior who was knocked away struggled and shouted. It's okay, I won't die. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi. Chapter 106. It's okay, I can't die. With that said, Lugger, who had just run out of the smoke, bent over and coughed. The female warrior over there hurriedly ran over to help him, regardless of her injuries. He said he can't die. He's coughing like this. Don't cough your lungs out. Minerva patted his back with one hand, and took out a bottle of light yellow potion from her package with the other hand. I've used up all the potions, and I only have this bottle left. Come on, drink it quickly to moisten your throat. Searched can on Google. As she said that, she couldn't help but pick up the medicine bottle and pour it into Lugger's mouth. Luge knew that she meant well, and her throat was indeed covered in dust just now, so drinking something to wash it down would be the solution. So he didn't resist at first. But when he smelled the unbearable pungent and hot smell emanating from the mouth of the bottle, his expression immediately became strange. What, ahem, is this? Ahem, I don't know, cough. Although he wanted to resist, he was no match for the 2-meter-tall female warrior wearing armor. With only one hand, he locked both of his hands tightly and pushed the mouth of the bottle into his mouth. You are such an adult and you are still afraid of taking medicine. Come on, be good and drink it all. As the female warrior spoke, she raised her hand and drank the bottle of unpleasant potion. Ha ha. What is this? Why is it so spicy? Well, it's so hot. What is this, pepper and white wine? Ruger's throat was no longer itchy, but instead burned. It's not that he can't drink, but he has never drank before. Hey, look at how you look like a bear. This is anti-freezing potion. I kept it specially, the female warrior said proudly. With it, I won't be overwhelmed even if I hunt all night in the ice and snow. I feel bad for drinking it for you, a guy like you who doesn't understand appreciation. You don't know a good person's heart. Antifreeze agent? In any world of love, do you rely on strong alcohol and chili pepper to resist freezing? Just this thing, can it be considered an alchemy potion? Lugger quickly took out a bottle of ice soda and neutralized it for himself, but was snatched away by the greedy Minerva. Wow, what is this? It tastes similar to the sugar soup of the Lost, but hiccup, why does it taste so good? The female warrior said with bright eyes. As expected, these Nephilim had dug up drinks left over from the world of the Lost. It's a pity that it has expired for 50 years, so how good can it be? It's that thing. It's just relatively fresh, Lugger explained vaguely and asked quickly. What about you, are you okay? As he spoke, he took out 2 injections of medicine and handed them over. The female warrior's eyes lit up again when she saw the injection, and she immediately took it and put it back in her pocket. Don't tell me, you have a lot of good things, even compared to little Taya. Your life potion looks weird. It's actually 3 points stronger than little Taya's life potion. Well, just think of it as a thank you gift to me. Yes, you have to help me take out the bullet stuck in my flesh later. As she spoke, the female warrior touched her side angrily. What? Do you feel pain? Lugger asked hurriedly. It doesn't hurt, just a little itchy, the female warrior said. It's so strange. Itchy? Luigi couldn't help but rolled his eyes when he heard this, and said to himself, Sister, how dare you use so many life-replenishing potions without taking out the warhead? As a result, the flesh has grown to close the warhead. How can it not be itchy? Shaking his head, Luge ignored her remark, turned around and ran back into the lingering smoke behind him, using a cart to pull out a new set of armor. Patting the thing, he said to the female warrior, put this thing on first. Is this one? The female warrior had already seen the new armor, which was much larger than the armor she had just broken. Her little heart had already started to beat. Is it for me? Of course, Lugger nodded. The new one you just wore was damaged again. The radiation protection inside, well, the part that protects against the curse of weakness must be damaged. You should quickly replace it with this one. Ah, the female warrior couldn't help but exclaimed when she heard this. I just said that I felt weak again just now. I drank medicine and got better. The part of my emotions that prevents curses was destroyed. I'm not talking about you. Why are your things so fragile? Can't they be stronger? Of course it can be done. Lugger curled his lips and thought, but it's too expensive. I'm not a rich man, so why don't I plan my budget carefully? Now, what should we do? Go find Taya, or wait here for her pet to come back? The female warrior asked while changing her clothes. Just as Lugger was about to answer, he suddenly heard a nagging voice in his ears. Quick, come with me, something happened on the master's side. What? Ruger asked. What? Minerva, who couldn't hear the old voice, was also a little confused by Lugger's reaction. When Lugger saw that he was going to be the translator again, he quickly pulled out another walkie-talkie connected to him and the female warrior, and let Launeokeo get in. There's something going on over there, master. Come with me quickly. Launeokeo repeated it again. Oops. What is this? This thing can talk by itself? Oh, is it Tia's pet? Can it really get into these devices as you said? Although the female warrior suddenly transformed into a curious baby, her actions were not slow at all. As he spoke, he put on his new armor and immediately took the walkie-talkie and walked to the edge of the cave outside where Launeokeo was. Tell me, where to go? Sister, help you open the way. However, before Lauqueer could answer, the unique electronic sound rang again. Do you think I'll die so easily? Want to leave? You'd better stay here. Before he finished speaking, the metal Tyrannosaurus in the green sticky fluorescent blood pool got up again and aimed the muzzle at the two people. Boom boom. 2 gunshots and thick smoke. The female warrior jumped away reflexively, but forgot that Ruger was still there. She was about to go back to save people, but found that Ruger, who was standing there without dodging, was not injured by the artillery, but looked at the Tyrannosaurus with a mocking face. She turned her head and looked over there. Hiss. 2 large holes were drilled in the chest and abdomen of the Tyrannosaurus, and the same green fluorescent blood kept flowing out. How is it possible? Neither the female warrior nor the metal Tyrannosaurus dared to believe what was happening in front of them. However, Lugger squinted and chuckled. You are very patient. Why, are you still in contact with Japan? Do you know how much effort I put into getting you to stand up? Do you think it is just a coincidence that I stand here and chat with my friends? Hee, in your state, if you want to attack me in this position, your upper body must be like this. So, it's that simple. As he spoke, as the smoke around him dissipated, 2 more artillery pieces appeared behind Lugger. They are also 2 75mm anti-tank guns, but the caliber is slightly smaller than before. This gun still looks unremarkable in front of them, and it is still the old toad gun from World War II. But if you walk behind them, you can see a completely different operating mechanism there. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 107. Behind the 2 guns is an automated remote-controlled weapon station that is very similar to the mortar howitzer that Ruger used on the small tank. Google search reading. Each of their gun muzzles even has a laser sight. This thing is generally not installed on artillery because the range of the artillery is too high and the trajectory curvature is relatively larger. But with Ruger's current needs, the distance between the artillery and the target is only a few hundred meters, which is just suitable for using this laser sight. He used tactical glasses to observe the landing point of the laser while adjusting the muzzle position of the two guns with the remote control in his hand, waiting for the Tyrannosaurus to stand up by itself. What? Why not just give it 2 more shots? Why bother? Well, that's naturally because the position where it fell was not good, or it was too good. The big feet of the track tank and the tail gun protected its vitals. Ruger's 2-toed anti-tank guns are difficult to move, and it is impossible to cross obstacles by simply adjusting the left and right height of the muzzle. If they forcefully attack, it will be a big problem whether the 2 sub-caliber armor-piercing shells fired from 75mm caliber can still cause fatal damage to the Tyrannosaurus after passing through the obstacles. Not to mention, Ruger has long been determined to make a fortune from the metal Tyrannosaurus, this time to make up for his losses. That short 88 gun and the extremely heavy track tank chassis are all spoils he wants very much. You. The metal Tyrannosaurus lying in a pool of green blood still said harshly. Don't think that you have won like this. Haha, you know nothing about the power of the Son of God. One day, the servants of Lord Noah will clean up all of you sinners on this planet. We, the Bayo Cyber Clan, will bring billions of lives on Earth to rebuild the beautiful home that you have defiled and destroyed. After saying that, the Tyrannosaurus was no longer angry. Bayo Cyber Clan? Ruger almost laughed when he heard this word. Well, this race name is really simple, crude, and easy to understand. Everyone is familiar with cyber, which is derived from cybernetics, such as electronic or computer. Transformers call themselves Cybertronians. Bio is the first half of biology, often used as a prefix for nouns related to biology. For example, Resident Evil, etc. These ghosts call themselves biocyber, which is exactly the same as their style of combining biological bodies with mechanical bodies. It is really simple and crude to the extreme. Hey, what did that guy just say? Is it dead? Then why don't we leave quickly? Seeing that Ruger was just laughing there with his head down, Minerva couldn't help but remind him. Well, it's just some polite words, don't take it seriously, Ruger hurriedly explained after hearing this. As for whether it is dead or not, well, it claims to be dead, but... Before he finished speaking, he heard a prompt from the system, which made him look as if it was just as expected and laughed again. What's wrong? Asked the female warrior. Well, it's dead. That Tyrannosaurus is dead. Oh no, it should be called a dinosaur-like modified life form. System record. Kill the mechanical modified life form, format brute dragon, get 230 points. That metal Tyrannosaurus is actually neither metal nor Tyrannosaurus. Well, it's not, and it's not. It's between yes and no. Its prototype is actually a format brute dragon. Ruger didn't realize it before, because he always thought that this metal Tyrannosaurus just borrowed their appearance. But if you say that part of this thing itself belongs to the real dinosaur, then there is another problem. How did a European country get the genes or fossils of Tyrannosaurus or Tyrannosaurus? But if the prototype of this thing is format brute dragon, it is much easier to understand, because this kind of dinosaur really lives in Europe, especially near this country. Brute dragon belongs to the Megalodontidae, and belongs to the same theropod suborder as the Tyrannosaurus family to which Tyrannosaurus belongs. Strictly speaking, it is neither Tyrannosaurus nor any other species in the Tyrannosaurus family. But in a broad sense, their kinship is obviously much closer than that of other star dinosaurs. As for metal, this metal Tyrannosaurus, Biocyber Bran, has a lot of metal visible to the naked eye. Even more than half of its body weight and a small half of its structure are metal mechanical structures. But its entire control system, like the turret modified by the machine gun crab, is completely based on biotechnology. Ruger was wondering why even when she got too close to it, the radio on the female warrior would be burned by its nuclear radiation, but it was a metal creature, so how come its electronic circuit was not broken? Now it seems that the ghost has used some special biotechnology to make its biological structure more resistant to radiation. How strong is it? There is even blood flowing with nuclear waste-like material. That is the green fluorescent viscous liquid. From this point of view, it is not wrong to say that this thing is very similar to Godzilla. It allows biological tissues to not only resist high-energy nuclear radiation at the level of nuclear waste, but also utilize the energy in it. Ruger was really curious about how the strange biotechnology could achieve the above. It was a pity that the radiation of that thing was too strong. Even if it died, Ruger didn't care to perform surgery on it at close range. After all, he only had the ability of a master mechanic, and his understanding of biotechnology was still at the level of an ordinary engineering graduate. What? The female warrior said she had no idea what Ruger was talking about. Ruger waved his hand, indicating that she didn't need to delve into his previous words, but he turned around and asked her to take the weapon and follow him. He himself walked in front and casually conjured an exoskeleton arm to put on himself. Tisk tisk, the capacity of your space equipment is not small. It feels like it's bigger than Tia. Seeing that he didn't shy away from her, the female warrior simply asked directly. Both Tia and Minerva had noticed that he could easily conjure new weapons. Although he covered it up well at first, the truth would eventually be revealed. Moreover, the various battles along the way were very fierce, and he had to take out large weapons to save the situation many times when the battle was intense. Before, he didn't say it, and the two women studied each other and decided to let him go and pretend that they didn't see it. Now that he didn't shy away from it, the female warrior naturally asked directly. Well, it's normal. Ruger didn't really think about it carefully. He just subconsciously recognized Minerva as his teammate and treated her like Tia, so he didn't pay attention to keeping it secret. Although he didn't want to explain this matter, he subconsciously felt a little resistant to telling others in detail before explaining it to Tia. That feeling was a bit like cheating. So he finally laughed it off. I've said this before, this belongs to alchemy. These are all made from the raw materials and energy provided by the enemy through alchemy. From a technical perspective, his words were not a lie, especially when he was talking to people in the dark world. Since this world has already classified firearms technology as alchemy, it is completely reasonable for him to call his super-realistic mechanical manufacturing ability alchemy. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 108. Is that so? Minerva could not find any fault with Ruger's explanation, but subconsciously felt that it was somewhat untrue, so she could only say this without commenting. Google search reading. Ruger in front also felt Minerva's true thoughts to some extent, and simply waved his hand and said, "Let me show you a magic trick." What? You can do magic? The female warrior asked curiously. Aren't you a lost one? Don't you have no magic power? When Ruger heard this, he realized that magic in their language is magic, and he subconsciously used it wrong. But he didn't want to explain it anymore. After all, the more he explained, the higher the chance of error. He just swept the hand he stretched out towards the corpse of the barbarian dragon, and the behemoth slowly disappeared. What is this? The female warrior was stunned. This is what I said, my alchemy. Ruger deliberately pretended to be proud. The dragon corpse was naturally recycled into raw materials by the logistics space. There is one thing that Luger was not talking nonsense about. As he used more and more, the efficiency of the recycling function of the logistics space was indeed getting higher and higher. This was also due to his increasing proficiency in telekinesis. With the blessing of telekinesis, he could even micromanipulate the recycling ability of the logistics space. From which material to be recycled first to which material to be recycled first, he could freely control it. Because of this, the huge Cyber Saren corpse was quickly recycled into the space by him. Even those nuclear wastes that were recycled separately. It's a pity that although the logistics space is strong, it can't directly enrich uranium when recycling nuclear waste. Otherwise, he might really pick up an atomic bomb for nothing. As for whether the mechanics in Los Santos master the method of making nuclear bombs. Hoo-hoo. Lugger was quite satisfied with the recycled materials, and Minerva was shocked when she suddenly found a familiar figure near the original barbarian dragon corpse in front. It's not right to say that it's a human figure. It's the half-skeleton zombie wearing a power exoskeleton and glowing with a fluorescent body. Ruger, look, that guy is still alive. Minerva said hurriedly. Witchcraft. What have you done? Where's my little dragon? The fluorescent zombie who was left alone on the spot was also a little overwhelmed by the situation in front of him. Ruger just tightened the exoskeleton in his hands and said to the zombie sarcastically, "Hey, don't you pretend to be dead." In the previous system's kill records, only the barbarian dragon modified body used as a mount died, but the real rider did not die. As for who is controlling the barbarian dragon behind the scenes, do we need to guess? It's obviously the mecha zombie that disappeared before. After all, it didn't even change its voice. You guy, I'm going to fight you," the guy said, and pretended to rush towards Ruger. Minerva picked up two swords and protected Ruger, but he just said don't move and then squatted and moved sideways. Before she understood what was going on, she saw the mecha zombie that had just rushed over changed its posture strangely and turned around and ran away. This. The female warrior was shocked. It's not that she had never seen monsters charging at the enemy before dying, nor had she seen monsters running away when the situation was not good. But she had never seen a monster that said it was going to charge and then faked a shot and ran away. Monsters, they are not that smart. Haha, run. Are you faster than a gun? Ruger sneered, and the 7mm heavy machine gun that had just been set up on the exoskeleton of his arm aimed at the guy and fired immediately. Da-da-da, da-da-da. Two short bursts were fired continuously, and the fluorescent zombie that had been causing trouble for Ruger and Minerva for dozens of minutes finally fell to the ground. But Ruger, looking at the kill record on the system panel in his mind, was even more confused than Minerva before. Why, how could this be? Kill undead creatures, corpse ignition, nightmare level, disabled, get 120 points. Corpse ignition is a dark gold elite monster in the original game's Evil Cave. In theory, it is the first boss level monster that players encounter. When sneaking into the Evil Cave with Tia before, Ruger was curious about where this guy went. It is said that a boss level existence like it should guard the junction of the Evil Cave and the Ghost Cave. Now it seems that this guy was actually there, but was lured into the nest by the ghost and controlled by some unknown means. This guy often carries a cold aura at high difficulty, which will greatly affect the player's mobility. The monsters in the Evil Cave are all nightmare difficulty levels, so this is right again. However, it seems that its aura ability has evolved into nuclear radiation. Moreover, it originally glowed blue, but now it glows green. Could it be that this guy was also filled with nuclear waste? Wait, could it be that this guy is the reason why the ghost can use biological bodies to control and utilize nuclear waste? Ruger was shocked and hurriedly ran a few steps to catch up with him. He didn't care that the buzzing sound of the Geiger counter in his protective suit was so frequent that it was over the counter, and immediately began to recover the guy's body. He recovered it very carefully this time, hoping to use the material classification ability in the recovery process to explore the background of this thing. However, just when he was concentrating on controlling the space recovery ability, he heard the female warrior behind him scream, "What is that?" Ruger raised his head and looked up, and saw a palm-sized, strange-looking insect that looked like a spider or a beetle, with two pairs of claws as sharp as knives, slowly crawling out of the corpse's mouth. "What the hell? Ghost!" Ruger exclaimed. "Not to mention, this thing is like a bug but not a bug, half organic and half metal, and it is really the same as Ghost, who claims to be the Bayo cyber clan. But when he saw this thing, Ruger had a strong sense of déjà vu. Where on earth have I seen something like this? He couldn't help but mutter. Just as he was stunned, the thing jumped out of the corpse's mouth, jumped twice, and 2 pairs of membrane wings grew behind it, and it flew away directly. That speed was not much slower than a bullet. It's going to run, chase it? The 2 people who reacted shouted immediately. Ruger hadn't recovered the corpse yet, and even if he accelerated immediately, he was still half a beat slower when he ran. On the contrary, the female warrior rushed over immediately when she saw that the situation was not going well. The walkie-talkie in her hand occasionally gave guidance and helped her navigate. It was old Noisy, who once again acted as a radio radar. The strange flying insects flew forward, running around in the underground maze through secret passages. But under the guidance of old Noisy, Minerva followed closely behind. After Lugger packed up his things, he hurried to catch up. This time, he did not drive the small tank that was already broken and the rear half armor and main weapons were almost ineffective, but directly controlled the exoskeleton on his body to rush forward. With the technical support of the exoskeletons of the mecha zombies, he also installed motor power on his exoskeleton, and the speed was much higher than before. Even so, it took him quite a long time to catch up with Minerva, who still needed to use a knife to cut a way forward from time to time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 109. Tisk tisk, that guy is so small, but he can fly so fast. Just after catching up with Minerva, Ruger finally breathed a sigh of relief. Google search reading. It's okay. Without this amount of exercise, you can't survive in this world. After the female warrior finished speaking, she glanced back at him. You are good in every way, but your small body is a little weak. This time it's over. Sister will help you practice when she has time. Barbarian style. Ruger's heart skipped a beat when he heard it. Barbarian style physical training? If it is used by normal people, it will kill people, right? He subconsciously looked at the wallet that had returned to 4 digits, gritted his teeth and exchanged for 2 physical strengthening potions. Previously, he restored the 3 anti-tank guns and the 2 modified armors of himself and Minerva, and his points that had just exceeded 4 digits were consumed by half. However, after killing the cyber brute dragon and the corpse, even if the large amount of materials recycled were not counted, the points alone made his wallet return to 4 digits. He was just thinking about whether to strengthen his physical attributes next time, when he heard Minerva talking about his physical weakness. Then there was no other choice, just strengthen the physique. With a high physique, not only will the physical defense be stronger, but the most important thing is that the endurance will be stronger. Although for his ordinary physique, no matter how strong the physical defense is, it can be ignored in this dark world, but the benefits of high endurance to him are real. For example, when operating this power exoskeleton, the better the physical strength, the better the performance. The greatest effect of the exoskeleton is equivalent to strengthening his strength. With his current strength, even if he charges with a 62mm general-purpose machine gun, he may not be able to hold on for long, and he can control the accuracy of the gun. But with the exoskeleton, even if it is a 7mm heavy machine gun, he can use it as an assault rifle to shoot. If he barely converts it, it is equivalent to letting his strength attribute directly reach 10 points, or even higher. In this case, focusing on physical strength is really the best choice for him. Moreover, he also felt that as his physique became stronger, his efficiency in digesting and absorbing the strengthening potion also improved significantly. It took several hours or even more than 10 hours to use the strengthening potion at first, but now, it feels like it can be digested in about an hour. So, while injecting himself with the potion, he secretly made up his mind to raise his physique to 10 points before Minerva really wanted to train him. Otherwise, he would really die. Be careful, we're here. As soon as Ruger recycled the useless empty syringe, he heard Lao Guozhao yelling. Then a heavy translucent glass door appeared at the end of the passage ahead. The switch is just. Before Lao Guozhao finished his guidance, he heard the female warrior yelling, "No need." The running female warrior held two long swords in front of her and gathered her energy secretly, and the blades flashed again. Swish, two sword lights flashed, and the heavy tempered glass door was cut into an oblique cross by her. The other parts also cracked into pieces, and a hole was knocked out by her strong impact. The strange flying insect that just flew in from the ceiling vent was so scared that it squeaked and hurriedly changed direction in the air to escape to the side. However, it would have been better if it hadn't screamed, because this scream directly exposed its position. The female warrior rushed through the glass door and immediately jumped up, raised her long sword and slashed horizontally, directly cutting the flying insect in half in mid-air. Spare the insect. Ruger wanted to say hello behind him, but it was too late. When he rushed in, the two halves of the flying insect just fell in front of him. Hiss, there are still many things to ask it, Ruger sighed. It's okay, I just cut off the layer of skin on its back where its wings are connected, it's not dead yet. After landing, the female warrior raised her long sword and said domineeringly. Okay, Martial Saint? Guangong, who are you? Seeing her arrogant and domineering look, Ruger could not help but complain in his heart. But when he turned around and looked at the strange flying insect on the ground, it was still struggling to crawl, as if trying to go in a certain direction. Ruger looked up at the secret room where it was trying desperately to escape while being alert, and couldn't help but take a breath again. Here, is this their core research room? What caught his eyes was neither the strange fungus carpet nor the World War II arsenal, but a modern laboratory with simple and bright decoration style. The layout and even the instruments and equipment nearby were very similar to the biochemistry laboratories he saw on TV. At this moment, the system suddenly dinged again, and it turned out that the task of exploring the ruins of the lost was finally completed automatically. This task with a total reward of 450 points was triggered when he and Tia were just about to enter the strange cave. Not long after entering the core dungeon area of the cave, this task was almost completed. The progress even reached 440 points. However, the last 10 points just didn't tick. If it weren't for the continuous income, Ruger would have completed it manually. It's just 10 points, and it came out after a casual hunt. Unexpectedly, it was completed automatically at this time. This may be a hint to Ruger that he has touched all the secrets in this mysterious dungeon. Maybe not all of them have been revealed, but they have all been touched. But what secrets are there in this modern laboratory? As he thought about it, he simply grabbed the wingless strange insect on the ground. The thing realized that something was wrong and immediately struggled, trying to attack him with 4 scalpel-like claws. However, the steel gloves he was wearing were harder than the hand armor that came with the full body armor, so he was not afraid of its weak attack at all. On the contrary, as he deliberately controlled and slowly tightened his grip, the last bit of vitality of the thing was also constantly fading. The whole insect became weaker and weaker. I know you can understand me seeing this, Ruger loosened his grip slightly and said, where do you want to escape to? I can help you. Squeak, squeak. Don't believe it? Are you afraid that I have some conspiracy? Ruger laughed, then you have no choice but to gamble. Either you listen to me and get the last chance to turn the tables, or you die now. Think about it carefully, don't worry, I have plenty of time. Think it through, point your 2 front paws together to where you want to go. Squeak, 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 squeak. From the meaning, the ghost seemed to have cursed. But Ruger didn't mean to pay attention at all, but slowly clenched his fist again. Oh, by the way, during this period, I will use you as a gripper. You know the gripper? It's a sports equipment for training the strength of the hand. It's very convenient to use it like this. You have to hold on, don't die like this. Squeak. The ghost insect had never been abused like this, and it wilted immediately. After a while, it stretched out its two paws and shook them, pointing to a very inconspicuous workstation. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 110. Go over there, right. Squeak. Google search and read. After confirming, Ruger did not break his promise and walked over with the blade spider in his hand. The equipment in this modern laboratory is very advanced. In Ruger's words, it looks at least 2020 plus or even 2030 plus. Even if it is a plain-looking workstation, the equipment on it is quite complete. But the professional equipment in the fields of biomedicine and other fields seems to have been damaged, leaving only a computer and peripheral accessories that seem to be intact. If there is something wrong, it is that there is a bell-shaped glass cover on this workstation, and there are still some residual biological tissues in it. Squeak. The two front claws of the blade spider pointed at the glass cover. Are you going here? Ruger asked. Squeak. Is that so? Ruger nodded, looked at it and smiled. See you later, E52. As he said, he actually put the thing in. Did you really let it go? The female warrior who had been following him not far behind asked curiously. This is its home ground. Yeah. It's faster this way, Ruger smiled. As he spoke, the laboratory, which had only dim lights in the night duty state, suddenly lit up. As the buzzing sound of the machine started up, the lights in the dark corridors around him also lit up one by one. When all the ceiling lights in the corridors were on, the doors leading to other areas seemed to have returned to normal from the default power outage and lock state. Looking back at the bell-shaped glass cover before, it had changed from the previous transparent color to a dark mass. Ha ha ha, sinner, you are too naive. My cover is not that simple. It's easy for you to let me in, but it's hard to catch me out again. Now, you die. Before the arrogant blade spider ghost over there finished speaking, Ruger smiled and unplugged all kinds of wires on a black square box that looked like a router on the workstation. Eh? What are you doing? You. How did I find out that you actually ran into this place? Ruger sneered. Do you think I don't know the equipment here? Didn't I tell you that I'm a mechanic? Do you think I really use this thing as a router? Haha, this is the most powerful electronic device on this table. The fourth generation host of Juying. As he said, he picked up the black rectangular box with a square bottom. Minerva, smash everything else on this table. Okay. Soon, the female warrior completed the task, and Ruger also powered up the square box with a portable power supply and added a speaker to it. Okay, don't pretend to be dead. If you don't make a sound, I will blow up this thing and you together. Ruger shook the square box. But, damn, sinner, you, kill me. The familiar electronic sound came from the speaker. Hey, it really got in here? How did it do that? The female warrior asked curiously. Why didn't I see it? It's normal that you didn't see it. Ruger smiled, threw the box to her, and walked towards the broken workstation. He found a black bell-shaped glass cover from inside. Although the shell was not broken, the bottom support was completely collapsed, revealing the gap at the bottom. He reached in and dug twice, and then he took out the blade spider from inside. Why, what's going on? The female warrior poked the spider curiously and found that it was still alive, but it seemed to have only instinctive reactions left. It's like after the brain is removed, the body still has an unconditioned reflex similar to the knee-jerk reaction under the action of the remaining central nervous system. Because, a guy who calls himself a string of ID names is unlikely to be a head bug. Ruger tore open the spider's body and took out a small chip wrapped in rich biological nerve tissue from the middle. Of course, this is not its real body, it can only be regarded as a temporary residence for itself. Ruger held the thing and looked at the square box. Is it, E52? Kill it if you want, you will get any other news from me. The voice in the square box was still tough. But this time even the female warrior could hear the helplessness behind the toughness. Really? Let's wait and see. After saying that, Ruger no longer paid attention to it, turned to ask Lao Guiaozuo, okay, this time it's really time to find your master? However, the walkie-talkie in the female warrior's hand did not echo. Hello, Simba. Are you there? Or is there something here that makes you afraid to come out? Ruger took out the Geiger timer while talking, and found that although the temperature here was still high, it was no longer a big threat to him and Minerva. If it's not because of nuclear radiation, then what is it? Ruger murmured. At this moment, the radio speaker controlled by the blade spider sounded again, and the voice was the disappeared Lao Guiaozuo. Hurry, follow the lights, I found the owner. Soon, the lights that had just become permanently lit began to flash again. But this time, their flashing was extremely regular, like a navigation indicator composed of lights, using the flashing sequence to guide the direction of travel. Have you taken over the control center here? Ruger understood at a glance and asked. What control center? Although there are many devices here, most of them are just empty shells, and the core chips are gone. Even if the performance of the chips of this broadcasting system and lighting control system is added together, it is not even 1/1000th of the performance of your mobile phone. Well, it's useless to dismantle it anyway, so it's better to keep it, Ruger nodded, expressing his understanding. Soon, the group passed through the corridor that was opened by the blade spider ghost insect before and entered another area of the laboratory. It looks like a special biological breeding area, or an experimental area. The biggest difference between this and the previous office area is that the two sides of the corridor are no longer workstations, but independent and sealed culture rooms. It's like a confinement room with a glass door. The creatures inside are not to say strange, but they are also varied, from plants to animals. There are even large trees several meters tall. One of them actually showed animal-like characteristics, and the branches or vines under the trunk whipped Ruger and his group like a whip. Fortunately, the glass doors of these confinement rooms, the cultivation rooms, are made of special tempered glass like the previous doors, and are very strong. XX, what the hell is this? A demonized plant. Although she was not hit, the female warrior Minerva was still shocked. Ruger was also shocked. However, he did not curse directly, but looked at the strange tree with vines and branches dancing non-stop with an inexplicable expression. He just felt that this kind of moving tree with a dark green main body and occasional yellow-brown tissue seemed to have been seen somewhere.